So this video is going to cover solving multi-step equations, and this is Unit 1, Skill 4. And I'll show these with 4 examples. The first one is negative 15n minus 20 equals negative 80. And notice now to be an equation, we do have the equal sign now, so we have both sides equal to each other. And we've got this variable, just one variable, n in this case, and we need to find what value for n would make the left side equal to the right. Okay, so we're solving for n, and those would be the instructions to solve. So in this case, we need to get n by itself. We have to get any like terms together. First, we look on each side individually, right? Negative 15n minus 20. Well, those are not like terms. You can't combine them. The other side just has a negative 80. And so now we look to see on both sides, can we move a term from one side to the other to combine like terms? Since we want to get this n term alone, and it's the only n term, just leave it there untouched. We're going to move this minus 20 over to the other side. But whenever you're moving to the other side, you have to do the opposite, right? So we're going to add 20, and we're going to add 20. We line it up right under its like term. A lot of times we'll put lines like that, and we combine down. So the negative 20 and the positive 20 cancel out. Whoops. There we go. And negative 80 plus 20 is negative 60, right? And then we bring the rest of the equation down. We had a negative 15n. This is just gone, so let's not write anything. It's just an equal sign. So now we have negative 15n equals to negative 60. And of course, this is the step where a lot of times we'll put the divide step like this. Right? If we're trying to undo the multiplication, like negative 15 times some number, n, and we're trying to find that number, we can do that opposite in this case, which is division. Remember, that's what this fraction bar means, is division. And when you divide negative 15 by itself, you get 1, and 1 times n is just n. So that's what gets our n by itself. So now n is alone. There's just like this imaginary 1 in front of it, or invisible 1. And then on the other side, negative 60 divided by negative 15 is positive 4. Okay, so in this case, n equals 4. All right, let's take a look at a second example. Okay, let's do negative 14 plus 6x equals 10x minus 6. So we first take a look at each individual side and we look for like terms. But we don't have any, right? Negative 14 plus 6x, not like terms. 10x minus 6, not like terms. So now we start combining like terms across the equal sign, but then you have to do the opposite, right? Now it doesn't really matter where you combine the x's, on which side, or which side you combine the constants. Sometimes I like to keep my x term positive, right? Notice there's more x's on the right than on the left. So I might choose to subtract these 6 x's, right? Those add now to just 0, so they go away. And when I bring that over underneath its like term, 10x minus 6x is then 4x. I've kept it positive, that's kind of nice. Bring down the rest of the problem, the negative 14, the equal sign, and then the minus 6. Okay, so now we need to combine those constants, and we put them on the opposite side from where we just combined the x's, which means this negative 6 that's right here, we need to add that, right, to do the opposite, because now these add to 0, and I bring it under its like term on the other side. Okay, so negative 14 plus 6 is negative 8 equals 4x. The final and last step, like almost always, is the division right here. So any number we have in front of this x, right, it means multiplication, so we divide to cancel that out. Okay, because those divide to 1, which leaves us with just that single 1x, and then negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. It really doesn't matter if you isolate the x on the left or the right, x is still equal to negative 2 at the end, either way. So that's example 2. Now let's add a few extra steps. So in example 3, we've got 10 plus 5p equals negative 5p minus 2 times 1 minus 3p. So we're going to follow the same steps as the previous examples, but we do need to get rid of the parentheses using the distributive property first. Okay, so I will definitely start here. I will distribute that negative 2. Okay, remember that that minus sign makes the 2 a negative. So I will rewrite this next step. 10 plus 5p equals negative 5p, and now negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 3p is positive 6p. So that's step 1. Okay, distribute. Now it's a matter of combining like terms, right? I like to combine any like terms on each individual side first before I start moving things from one side to the other, okay? So I notice, right, so there's cuts two sides in half, that on the right side I now have these two like terms. So I'm going to write those as, let's see, negative 5p and a positive 6p is just 1p, or p, right? Bring down the minus 2. Now I'm just going to bring down the other side. I didn't really touch it. And now this becomes just like the last example, where I need to get all of the p terms on one side, and it doesn't really matter which, and all the constants on the opposite side of that. In this case, I have more p's on the left. So I think I'm going to take this 1p, right, that's like a positive 1p, and I'm going to subtract that 1p from both sides. So it adds to 0 here, and then on the left we now have 10, and then 5p minus 1p is 4p, so plus 4p equals, and then we bring down a negative 2. Don't forget that the minus sign in front of the 2 makes it negative. Now I need to collect the constants on the opposite side, which is on the right. So this 10, we need to subtract it over to the other side, right? So these cancel out to 0, they add to 0, and we're left with this positive 4p. I don't need to write the plus sign anymore. I know it's positive. Equals, and the negative 2 minus 10 is negative 12. We're in that final step, which is our division step. So we divide by that 4, right? 4 divided by 4 is 1. So now off to the side I'll write p equals negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Okay, so I'm putting a bunch of steps together, the distributive property, combining like terms on the same side, combining them onto the opposite sides, and then finally dividing at the very end to get p by itself for a solution of negative 3. I'm going to give you guys one more problem to work out on your own. So here's example 4. It's a little bit longer, so I want you to carefully work through the steps here. So it's 2 parentheses 1 minus 6m, and a plus 4 on the outside of the parentheses, equals negative 5 times m minus 4. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video to give you a chance to work this out and get a solution. And then when I press play again, you'll see the solution worked out and you can compare and see if you got the right answer. All right, so here's the worked out answer. I'm getting m equals -2. So go ahead and check your work if you're not quite getting -2, and this would be a good time to ask some questions. And that's your video on multi-step equations.